And you love somebody even when you're getting it. Even when you're taking an arrow in the shoulder and you're taking a bust in the mouth. You stay put because you say the only way in which I can love you is to stay put. Patience. Kindness. The Bible talks about love being kindness because love is not a feeling first. It's not possessive. Very, very important. It means, for example, that instead of wanting to use the person, you instead want to free the person. C.S. Lewis in the book For Love says, what most of us think of as love is really a kind of hunger. What most of us consider the feeling of love is actually a feeling of wanting to use somebody to meet our needs. When you see somebody as, oh, first of all, that person is, well, it depends. If we're thinking about somebody of the other opposite sex, here's what most people think is a feeling of love. Number one, the person accidentally happens to fit the body type of the paradigm in your mind that you've always thought was attractive. That's the first thing. Right? In other words, you've got a body type in your mind, and you look at all these people out there, the opposite sex, and you have no idea what they're like, but the ones that you immediately knock away are the ones that don't fit the body type. You don't even know anything about them. Then you go after the ones that do. Then secondly, you talk to them and you begin to say, hey, these people are sharp. I would feel like I was getting into an echelon where I would feel like, hey, I would look good with this person. And what's going on is you're falling in love, you're feeling attracted, but what it means is the soul hunger that needs somebody to come in and meet those needs is starting to throb. That little need thing in there is starting to throb, and you call that love. Real love, what? Is not possessive. That means love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it is not self-seeking, it's selfless. It's not there trying to use somebody, but trying to free somebody. Not irritable, which we've talked about a little bit, not bitter, it doesn't care about its rights. I don't have time to go through all that. Go to the back. Verse 8 to 13 is very famous. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part, but when perfection comes, the imperfect disappears. Now, what's this saying? Number one, it says real love never fails. We've already said one difference between real love and kind of a fake, false, counterfeit kind of love is that real love stays put and you make yourself vulnerable. Another mark of real love is that it is not trying to be selfish and meet your needs, but it's actually trying to meet the needs of the person. Now, one of the ways Paul says you can tell the difference between selfish, need-meeting love and actual service and commitment to somebody is that real love never fails. That means it stays put. Now, you can understand why. If you love somebody on the basis of what they can do for you, your feeling for that person will change and will wax and wane depending on their behavior toward you, right? If the basis of your love is whether or not that person's meeting your need, then you will find that you love them more when they're meeting your need more, and you'll love them less when you're meeting their need less. But if instead your love is based on a desire to serve someone and give to them and help them, then it doesn't matter how they act. In fact, when they act worse, when they act more messed up, if anything, you have more of a basis for your kind of love, for God's love. If you're there to meet a need instead of have your needs met, then the more needy the person gets, the more you can love. And that's why Paul says the real difference is that need love tends to dry up. It gives up. It collapses. Literally, the Greek word here is to collapse, like a city collapses when it's under siege. And therefore, Paul says it doesn't give up. Let me talk to you about the economics of it. If I, like most of us here, maybe not all of us, but most of us are not independently wealthy. Most of us have got to go out and work. Why? Because we got so much time, and we have our bills, and we've got to spend at least a certain amount of our time making money. So when somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I really need for you to spend a day with me, I got a problem, well, you can only do that so far, right? Because you're not independently wealthy. You've got to set aside a certain amount of time. You can only be so generous. But what if you were infinitely wealthy, just about? What if you had billions and billions of dollars in a trust fund? Then you find out you can suddenly be incredibly generous everywhere because you're not operating on a system where you have to make sure that you are getting a certain amount of money for your time. Now, the same thing works with love. If you, in your natural state, realize that we all have got to have love from somebody, we've got to. I mean, you've heard about all the experiments that show that little babies die if they're not being held. I mean, that is the most amazing thing. That babies have a much higher infant mortality rate if they're just